Welcome to the Perfect Paver podcast. Today we're tackling one of the most misunderstood topics in our industry, polymeric sand. Because there are no official standards or licensing requirements for paver installation, anyone can call themselves an expert. That's why we're bringing in two people who actually are. Our owner and founder, Mark Rodas, and our production manager, Ethan Kennedy. Between them, they've seen every success and every mistake when it comes to polymeric sand. We're breaking down what it is, how it works, common myths, and what homeowners should really know. So let's dive in. So why does Perfect Paver take such a different approach?
Yeah, Leah, that's a great question. And I think maybe the question is, why does everyone else take a different approach, right? So Perfect Paver Company, what you'll find that's interesting about our team is that we actually started as a paver installation company, and spent many years before Perfect Paver Company was even thought about or created, installing anything from small patios, small pool decks to streets, brick plazas, large $1 million plus installations. Many of us are certified by the Interlock Concrete Pavement Institute. It's really the only organization that offers training and certification specific to paver installation, the system, and maintaining it. And so with that knowledge, we've created and developed our processes, and they're constantly evolving and being perfected here at Perfect Paver. Ethan and I, we're on the phone all the time, like, hey, there's this new product or there's this new problem, and we're sorting through that. But because we have the experience of how a system is supposed to be built, we're able to maintain it and restore it and repair it back to how it's supposed to be originally built. These aren't techniques that we've been taught by a weekend crash course from a sealing manufacturer. These are actual techniques that we've learned through doing millions and millions of square feet of paver installation and thousands and thousands and thousands of patio restoration jobs throughout multiple different states across the U.S., many of which being in the state of Florida.
With other contractors, how are they set up, or how are they different from not having that installation background?
Typically, I think to be able to be a paver restoration company, you have to, be an installer and do repairs. And a lot of those companies are not doing repair work that is, required in doing paver restoration work. So a lot of these companies just, they're just out there cleaning and sealing and adding it to their services.
So Mark, why does Perfect Paver continue to use polymeric sand over the joint stabilizing sand?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And, it's certainly something that we've done a lot of research on over the years, especially when the product kind of firstly was introduced, or that concept or the process was first introduced. But at the end of the day, we think that how you maintain and restore the sand joint, and how you protect and restore the paver surface, each of them have a lot of different variables, and it's not a cookie cutter one size fits all. It's not one sealer, one sand comes on and does the job every single time. So with polymeric sand, we're able to address the joint independent of the surface of the paver. And what I mean by that is every joint's different. Some joints are extra, they're wider. They require a polymeric sand with more polymers being added to it, or maybe larger aggregate to help keep that joint intact. Whereas maybe another joint requires finer material, so that the material drops down into the joint adequately. And then you have the surface of the paver. Every paver is different. And what I mean by different is the texture on the surface is different, the density or the porosity is different, and the age of the paver is different. So one paver might be very porous, and it really absorbs sealer as you're applying it, right? And so that paver, you need to apply it a little bit heavier. So if you're doing the joint stabilizing sealer at all in a 1 day process, not polymeric sand, that's the perfect scenario, right? You have old pavers that are very porous. You get to flood the pavers, and then you get to flood the joint, right? Now the joint got plenty of polymers, it's nice and hard, and the surface of the paver um, also got an adequate amount of sealer, and it's the perfect scenario. But what you run into is that's based on if your contractor apply the right amount of sealer, right? So there's all these variables now that are starting to come into play. It's the joint width. There's the unique characteristics of the paver surface, and then you have the contractor who's actually doing the work. And so when a contractor is making sealer, most of the sealers come they come not mixed with water yet. So it's just like part A, part B. You mix them together with water, and so a contractor has the ability to determine, if he wants to use less polymers, less solids in the sealer, maybe more water. Obviously, the more water he mixes into the sealer, the further that sealer is going to go and the more money he's going to put in his pocket, but the less polymers that are going to be introduced into that joint. So we get to control the joint. Every single application is going to be the same, right? There's no variable based on inconsistencies from the contractor or the person doing the work. And then we get to apply the right amount of sealer to the paver surface. I talked about the paver that's very porous and it really drinks the sealer. Well, the next paver might be a newer paver or a paver that's very, very dense on the surface, and it doesn't want to accept much of the sealer. So on our application, we would be controlling the amount of sealer that we put on that paver, right? We wouldn't be saturating it because we know that the stone can only accept so much sealer. And when it's done accepting the sealer, it just accumulates on the surface. And that's going to be problematic long-term. So now maybe you have a contractor who does joint stabilizing sealer. He goes to a paver that is dense on the surface. If he's even, knowledgeable, if he knows that he should be looking out for that, he determines, hey, this paver is very dense on the surface. I have to be cautious on how much sealer that I'm applying so that I don't over apply. And he delicately applies the sealer to the perfect level of sealing that specific stone. But guess what? What's in the joint now, right? Not much sealer, right? Yep. So, so with perfect pavers process, we get to determine what's best for the joint and achieve that with polymeric sand, and then determine what's best for the paver surface, being the type of sealer. Not all sealers harden polymeric sand, and some, not all stones should be sealed with sealers that harden polymeric sand. So we get to determine what is the best sealer choice for the paver surface, independent of the joint and the sand.
So the joint stabilizing sand and sealer, that sounds like it's a one size fits all?
Yes. For polymeric sand it is, but for for regular joint sand, it doesn't fit all sealers. So not every sealer has joint stabilization and additive in it. So if you are installing, like natural stone, we can go to, you can't just install regular sand in there and use a natural finish and like an impregnating sealer, which is designed for natural stone. It wouldn't work. It would just be a free moving sand, and it's gonna come out like the day it was installed. So with using a polymeric sand, you can still achieve that natural finish without and still having a hard joint, and that is only with polymeric sand.
So polymeric sand you can use in any joint, but it's also it sounds like from what Mark was saying earlier that there's a lot more of a method to how polymeric sand is installed and the type of sealer. It allows us to customize what's best for the project, not necessarily a flat one size fits all.
Correct. And it allows us to, give the customer the finish that they desire, whether that's, it allows you to have either a satin finish, a semi-gloss finish, or a gloss finish. That's really hard to do with using a traditional joint sand because you have to flood those joints and you're relying on the applicator to put the right amount down, but also you're using a lot more sealer in doing so. So in return, that's all based on sheen. Your sheen levels are going to rise as well. So it's hard to give the customer exactly what they want.
So thank you both for being here and talking about polymeric sand and answering some of those tough questions.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you for taking the time to join in, and to our customers for asking the question. And we look forward to discussing your project with you in the future.